In order to query the Flexera One API using GraphQL, it's important that we generate a Flexera One API refresh token. Let's take a look on how we can achieve this. In Flexera One, click on your profile, click User Settings. On the left-hand side, click on API Credentials. Now, back onto the right-hand side, let's click on Create API Refresh Token. When creating the new API refresh token, ensure that you copy the string and keep it safe for future use. When working with GraphQL, you have multiple options. There's Altair with the browser plugin as well as a desktop client, and with Altair's Flexera's official recommendation also includes sample prerequisite scripts for access token generation that can be covered from the developer.flexera.com documentation pages. With Postman, that many of you are familiar with in advanced, used for REST API and SOAP web services APIs, that may be a preferred option. It also includes a native GraphQL context that includes a convenient results table. You can develop native GraphQL and copy-paste to REST API query format, and then potentially also export into curl, Java, PowerShell, etc. For the rest of this demo, we will focus on downloading and installing configuring Postman. Following successfully configuring an API refresh token within the Flexera One org, the next step is to download Postman. Select the version of operating system that you are using and download the relevant version locally to your machine. The next stage following the successful installation of Postman is to create an account. Once you have successfully registered and created your Postman account, click the Sign In option and follow the on-screen instructions. Select your username and allow Postman to log in. Now that we're logged into Postman, let's now complete the necessary configuration. The first step that we need to do is click on Collections and then select New. At this point, we're going to hit the new collection and we're going to call this Flexera One Enable. The second step we're going to do is click on Environments and click New. And this time we're going to select the New Environment option. And again, we are going to call this Flexera One Enablement. The next step is to add the following variables. First one is refresh token. Please notice the case sensitive. The next part within the refresh token is to paste our previously configured string. The next variable to add is access token. The next variable to add is org ID, and notice the uppercase I. The last variable to add is TLD region. Now, double clicking into the org ID, in the initial value, you need to enter the Flexera One org ID that you're currently connected to. In the TLDR region initial value, I'm going to enter COM. It's important to update this value by region. For North America, it is .com. For EU, it is EU. And for EU APAC, it is AU. Then click the Save button. To identify which org and shard location you're logged in, from the browser, you will notice the org ID number, and you will also notice the shard location. The next part of the configuration is to select New, then select GraphQL. Within the Enter URL, we need to enter the following URL. once we've entered the URL, which is our first GraphQL query, and notice we're making use of the variables within the TLD region, you'll notice COM, and within the org ID, you'll notice the org ID number. And then switching to authorization, we need to select the bearer token, and then we need to select access token. Now, clicking in the scripts tab and selecting the before query, we will need to enter the following script. Please note that this script will execute before the actual query entered into the query tab and update the access token.
Now, switching focus to the schema tab. If we were to click on the use GraphQL introspection, we are presented with an error. To correct this issue, we are going to simply enter a simple query, and then if we go back to the schema tab and this time run the query, you'll notice that we are now connected using the authorization schema and scripts. Going back to the query, if we were to clear the simple query that we just entered, and on the right hand side using some of the available options by selecting business service and clicking query, we are then presented with a successful query. Notice the message of 200 OK, and I can switch from pretty to table to see the GraphQL results. Now let's look at some use cases for using GraphQL.
Use case 1. I would like to retrieve detailed spending information related to cloud computing instances. In Postman, when you're working with APIs, search fields or query parameters are used to filter, sort, or narrow down the data returned by an API request. Let's use the connected schema to build out our first use case query using the available tags. Within the connected schema, I'm going to select the query option. I'm then going to select Cloud Instance Spends, and going down towards the bottom, I'm going to build out the query. So I'm going to select usage amount, rate code, net instance spend, net computer spend, line item type, hourly instance rate, exchange rate date, discount, and then finally date. Notice that when I was selecting the tags, the query was building out over on the right hand side. And due to the query predicting to take a long time, I am now going to limit the query to 10 records. And then I'm going to run the query. We can now see that the query has completed successfully. Notice the 200 OK message. And if I switch to the table view, we will see the results of that query. Use case 2. I would like to fetch the top 5 records of cloud software spending where the license status is BYOL, helping users analyze cost and usage patterns for self-managed software licenses in the cloud. Back in Postman on the right-hand side, if I now select the previous successful query and paste in a query that I've completed offline, notice that we are presented with a red error under the exchange rate date. If I hover over the error, I can view the problem. Reading the error message, it clearly states that it cannot query the field called exchange rate date, and it's offering me a solution to the error. Let's close the error message, remove the E, and now Let's run the query. As we are in the table view already, we can now see the successful query results. I can also press the pretty button to see the query in a different format. Use case 3. I need to see my cloud software spend records where the net PAYG pay-as-you-go spend exceeds $1,000. On the right-hand side within Postman again, I'm going to delete the previous successful query. Again, I'm going to paste a query that was completed offline. I'm going to now run the query. Let's now update the query to include a where clause to remove the null values. Now let's take a look at how we can save our last GraphQL query. To save the query, simply in the top right hand corner, click Save. Please notice that GraphQL requests cannot be saved to collections with HTTP requests. This request will be saved into a new collection. Within the collection name here, enter a new collection name and click Save.